Mr. Schiebel?
Yes, sir.
This is some little tiny text.
I understand there's a lot of information. If you give me a minute, this has actually changed from what the board has seen in the past. In the past, we showed about a $14,000 operation and maintenance budget. Wasn't realistic, and we've changed that to a realistic number to include the employee and repairs and such that we expect that we're going to have down there. Well, we've also changed the estimated project cost, which is in the top left corner of the yellow. We've changed that to the actual project cost with an additional $250,000 setting in that debt service amount to start some of the upgrades that we need to do as far as for flushing hydrants, repairs to some of the lines that are necessary, and doing those kind of things. So we've just shown that for those purposes.
Okay, can I stop for a quick second? It's a 30-year loan.
That's correct.
So where is the annual debt service number?
Annual debt service is underneath of...
Oh, total debt service and annual operation and maintenance.
Yeah.
But what's just the debt service number?
Total debt service is column P. That's debt service and O&M.
Yeah, that says debt and... See, I need to know what my bill is every year to the county. Now, operation and maintenance is really something you're planning to do anyhow, which would be the normal way you do any system. But I want to remove that so I need a warm and fuzzy about I'm collecting X amount of dollars every year and my debt service is X every year.
Which is A. If you look at A, it gives you your principal and interest payments are B. Column B includes your debt service.
So the first year it's 106,000, then it kind of spikes to 165 and change.
Yeah, and if you look at column S, that really shows you the cumulative effect of where you're at. So as we collected those revenues up front, you see that in the fifth year we have $777,087 in the bank that we haven't actually spent at that point on debt service. And that's at the point where I think we would be covered to cover any catastrophic events that could happen. And, looking at catastrophic, what could be catastrophic, we're looking at a $50,000 repair that could cost that much. Above and beyond that, with the system itself, I don't know, other than a contaminated system that got contaminated somehow, but any kind of a failure we should be able to fix for less than $50,000. And at that point, we would have enough money, the $700,000 sitting there to cover any cost that could occur, and then start a replacement program on the sixth year and start putting that money aside strictly for upgrading the lines.
Okay. So let me just make sure I feel good about what I'm thinking. The very first year, column Q, says revenue over expenditures, we would be plus $123,000 in the first year.
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'm talking $2,800 connection fee times how many connections?
That's over 5 years. We use 381, or how many paying customers are on their system
381
today.
over 5 years.
That's correct.
They're not all going to connect right away?
All of them will be connected the day that we take over.
And then they're going to start paying 1/5 of that $2,800, so we get it in 5 years.
They'll be paying it on a monthly fee of $46.66. Year 12 is actually half because we were looking only to collect half of the fee. We were looking to take over January 1 and collect half of those fees. So your first column showing the reduced fee, where the second year it actually comes up. So to that.
All right. Last question is, why is column S, cumulative revenue over expenditures, why are there red numbers at the bottom?
Because as you continue to increase your debt service or increase your O&M, if you look up at the other yellow block kind of in the middle of the page, we're showing O&M to increase at 1% and user charges to increase at 2%. The original one that was showing the user fees would increase by 5% every year over 30 years, which I don't believe was realistic. And in putting this together, we wanted to make sure that we were showing realistic numbers and felt that the 1% and 2% was more realistic over a long period of time. And with the continued increase in cost, that number goes down because you basically have lost your funds as far as your accumulation of your funds that you had from your original $2,800 availability fee, and as that drops off, that number drops off.
So according to this, in 2028, the system's going to be losing money?
That's correct. If you also look at column E and F, column E is showing 2 new homes built in Caroline Pines every year for the next 30 years. Very low projections. However, we wanted to make sure that we were showing something that we knew would be realistic, that could definitely happen. We believe we could build 2 homes in there. We also show 1 home being built every 7 years on our 1 commercial connection every 7 years throughout there. So there's 4 of those that are shown. So we've got 57 connections that are built residential and 4 commercial. And that includes the entire line from the connection point coming down. If anything is connected on the Shire property, of course, on any of that new line, it could come off of that, which would be part of availability fee basically collected from that part of that service of that line.
Okay. How did we put these numbers together?
Mr. Rogers actually put these numbers together, and we have changed the percentages for the user fees with his assistance.
Okay, I don't know if it's just me, but why am I going to lose money? I mean, why is this project going to lose money in, I'm probably not going to be here in 2028 or whatever, but...
We are paying back, basically you're trying to pay back $2.3 million, and you're collecting just over $1 million in availability fees. So your debt service catches up to you. Your
Right.
O&M, you're fine. We're covering O&M. The problem is when you get down there to 2028, your debt service then catches up from your cumulative of what you got from your original $1 million at that point.
Yeah, so then in 2028, that's really the problem. In 2028, I'm pretty much finished getting the availability fee numbers, but
That's
what's
correct.
actually going to happen is now my monthly water bills have to pay that debt service bill.
That either that or, well, exactly, that would have to happen, or your availability fees from any new homes that come in. So if you had a year where you built 5 new homes, that would make a big difference. Or you got one large business that came in that was using 8 to 10 connections, then that fee would help offset that as well. The original number, again, as I saw it, it was 5% increase over 30 years for the user fees, and it showed it coming out as a 0 at the bottom, or actually we were making money. But that's not a realistic number. And as well, the O&M expenditure that they had originally stated, I believe, was understated.
Mr. Schiebel, did you assume $2,800 was a constant availability fee? For the 57 new homes you've got at the bottom where you say you add on, are they going to pay $2,800 or are they going to pay the standard fee?
No, it'll be the standard fee. If you look over residential new availability fees in the left column, about the 6th line down, it's showing $8,000 for water, and it's shown $8,000 for the continuation of the 30 years.
Okay. I do not have a warm and fuzzy at all. And in 17 years or 16 years, we're going to be losing money at a pretty good clip on this system.
That's
Even
correct.
column Q, which is revenue over expenditures, that's the yearly number. So in 6 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7th year, I'm going to start losing money on the system, but that's assuming, because that's assuming I've collected all of the availability fee I'm ever going to get. Yeah, and he's given me, well, I got enough in the first 7 to make sure. So I'm going to lose in 2041, my gosh, when I'm 90-some years old.
$916.
Yeah. Oh, which means they'll be worth less later on. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think the service district is going to have to be a lot more.
Mr. Chairman, in talking, if you look at the very last column of $10 per month, it's past column S.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's his extra million on the service district.
Yes. That's why if you put in a service district, you would not lose money on this facility.
Right.
Well, we can pretty much end this discussion because we have to have a service district.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have this service district, which is why we talked about it before, if we don't have the service district in 2041 when I'm 90-some years old, we'll lose $500,000.
Yes.
That's correct.
But if I have the service district for $10 a month, starting in year 7, I will have $1 million to offset that, and I'd probably feel pretty good.
And that's assuming there's no pipe issues.
Well, I still have in that whole grand
what I'm
scheme of
saying,
things,
there's
I have
gonna be-
500,000 in pipe issues.
Well, by that time, you're going to be replacing everything in here. I mean, because when you get to 2025, you're looking at a complete replacement.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think it's a 30-year life basically on what they looked at, but we also looked at the new construction that's there too within the Caroline Pines. So all of the won't be replaced. Matter of fact, we had a certain percent that we talked about of new homes versus old homes in the district. So we felt pretty comfortable because what occurred was the numbers that you looked at earlier when you agreed to this project were not realistic numbers. So when Joey went back and ran the numbers, clearly he saw some issues that needed to be resolved, and that's why you needed the service district.
Well, we need a service. I've
protect
always,
the rest of the citizens.
It was the opinion of a few people at least to say we always need a service district just to make sure we protected the county. I mean, we're doing a good thing by spending money to run water to people who have issues with water. You know, I think that's a good thing. That's kind of what government should do. On the other hand, they need to have some skin in the game, for lack of a better phrase. And in doing that with this availability fee, I think we'd now be protected. Okay, thank you for the missed heartbeats, Mr. Schiebel, but on this, when you do this again, could you put column T, which is what
That was done at the last minute today. I threw a column in there just so that you would see if we were to put $10, and $10 is a relative number. As Ms. Cosby just explained, it was our assumption last week that we'd be able to charge everyone $10 a month, and that's what the fee would be. But in the information that she has been able to gather, because this is a tax, it is by the Commissioner of Revenue, and it is a percentage of the value of property. So as the board sets that tax rate, we will try to set that tax rate so it's an average of $10. But if you own a $500,000 home and you own a $50,000 home, you're going to have two different rates that you're paying. And when we were first talking about this last week, that was not our understanding of everything. And I know Ms. Cosby has been working very diligently trying to get all this information together on the service district itself.
Okay.
So to show you that number, I put that over there to show you that if we did that, you would have 109 or just over 1,097,000 to go against your $500,000 loss. That leaves you just over $500,000 at year 2041.
Okay. Could you, thanks for having this ready ahead of time. Could you do this one more time?
Yes, sir.
And at least for me, I don't know about everybody else. Well, they have their glasses on. Can you send it to me electronically so I can zoom it up on my computer and see it?
Yes, sir. Would you like me to change any of the numbers, or?
I would like to not see any red numbers.
Okay. Now, I did not accumulate your debt service fee into that number. So when I say the numbers that you see on the far right column, which would be column T, they are not offsetting anything. I was just showing you those accumulative $10 a month, what that would be over each of those customers. And actually, that's only showing you $381. At that point, you're actually $392 when you start to go up. So I was just putting together a quick number so we could look at this evening so I could show the board if it was asked of me.
Well, if you can take your time and do this again so we can have it for November 1st and really we need to see the revenue per year and the expenditures with O&M per year and add in that $10 fee when you think it should be. So then I'll have, in every year, I'll see where we've got X amount of money. Then we could go along with what Mr. Popowitz was saying as a replacement plan. You know, I'm thinking now if I look at this in 2041, I'll have $500,000. The reality is I'm going to spend a lot of that money on the replacement plan.
That's correct.
And I want to necessarily be able to say this is where we're going, this is what it costs, this is how good it is, you know, those kind of things.
Absolutely. And we would target, of course, the worst section of the lines in there first and start upgrading those. So hopefully as we're replacing those, we're eliminating any future breaks. I know that when Caroline Pines experiences a water main break, typically it's between $3,000 and $10,000 for them because they've got to pay the contractor and everything else. So when we actually look at that, because we've got staff time already built into the O&M and we've got repair costs, we already own our own equipment. So our cost to do the same repair, you know, we've got a lot of soft dollar costs that you don't actually see when a contractor comes in. So our repair costs are actually covered in that $84,000 and have about $10,000 actually built in there just in supplies for repairs, which is a significant amount of money really for that.
Can you factor in here just to make, I like to be really conservative when we do things like this. Can you factor into this equation one or, well, 2 breaks a year?
Well, we got 5 in there now.
Where's 5?
It's just
I can't hold us far enough out to see
in the
it.
budget that we've got for the $84,000 in that budget. It includes an employee, it includes electrical cost, chemical cost, repair and maintenance costs.
So you got 5 breaks in there a year.
Yes, sir.
In the O&M numbers.
Yes, sir. And that's provided or not in the board. I mean, we looked at 5. You know, we're figuring. We just talked to them when we got into September. They had 1 water main break up until Comcast came in there, and they've had 4. And unfortunately, due to us being in there and installing our water line, we've hit 2 of their lines. Okay. Kind of the unfortunate part of them not having staff to mark lines.
All right, I'm good. I just want to. I'd like to have the financial model include the service district cost, because as we, you know, we're going to put this on our website and say this is the proposed Caroline Pines project and what it costs. And I don't know about anybody else, but I sure don't want to see any red numbers. So when I see red numbers, I'm like, oh, this is bad.
Right, absolutely.
So we see that. All right, the board wants to move ahead with the service district process, because we can do the district process without all the details. Basically, what Mr. Schiebel is saying, we have 5 years to come in with the, not that it'll take that long, but the service.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Underwood's made a motion to
Proceed with
move forward with the creation of a service district for Caroline Pines. I think Mrs. Cosby, you and Mr. Park want to take that, or you and Mr. Schiebel. Give us exactly what we got to do. And Mr. Seeley made the second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your patience. Mr. Schiebel, thanks again for your explanation. I appreciate that. We will we'll come back to you, of course. You were so good. Let's do it again. We'll move to agenda item 12, which is the proposed change order for the wastewater treatment expansion project. I think Mr. Pardon has kind of briefed most of the board on this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening again. Tonight we've tried to lay out in the summary a pretty detailed explanation of where we are on the wastewater treatment plant project as far as this change order. As the board's aware, we've adopted $16.4 million to construct the wastewater treatment plant under a PPEA, and in that we were looking at a turnkey type project. However, with a PPEA or any contract, there are risks that are apparent on both sides, one towards the county and one towards the contractor. The contractor picks up a lot more risk in this type of project, such as any design flaws that are out there, any unknowns that are found as they're constructing the line, or anything that can't be constructed as it is on a piece of paper, and that happens from time to time. Typically, that would be a cost that we would have to incur and take on those risks as we move forward. All those risks have been assumed by the contractor under the PPEA. However, the county still has, underneath of their risks, anything to deal with any soil issues. If we had encountered any kind of rock, earthquakes, unknown hazards as fires and things like that. So we still take on that onus as a county. Normally what we have done in the past on most projects is we'll do a geotech study and have that information available as we bid a project out. We've done that on the Visitor Center. We've done that on the Dawn Library. This project, before we actually signed the contract, that was not done. Typically we would recommend that that would be done prior so you kind of know going in to have a good idea what you have. The contract that we actually signed said that we would have suitable soils, defined as about 3,000 psi soil. We're somewhere around 2,000 psi. In the contract, the county is responsible for any unsuitable materials that are on site. We've got the big reactor unit that holds 1.5 million gallons of water, and that unit is extremely heavy. The soil that we're actually on at this point is a decent soil. The problem is the soil that's underneath where this unit's going to sit. What we are being told by the soil people is that we need to go down and bridge over top of the existing unit. The contractor has already designed extra large footings. These footings stick out 10 foot beyond the wall of the building. And with that, we have to extend the geotech fabric and the grid underneath of that to be able to bridge over the bottom area. The contractor has already absorbed the cost in the footings, the concrete and the steel associated with that, and he is willing to absorb 50% of the cost associated with the unsuitable soils under this area. I'd like to bring caution that as we move forward, we do have 3 other structures out there that are in the same type of soil, and we've got one that is significantly deeper. The good news is square foot wise, it's relatively small. We do anticipate to have some soil issues on the large filter building. We do not anticipate having any real issues with the clarifiers at this time. As we move forward, we're going to have to look at that. We won't know till we really get there. If you look at the Visitor Center, we moved forward, we did soil test, and we did everything we could have done, and we get out there and still have $300,000 in unsuitable material. So to say that if we had done that up front, it would have gotten rid of anything, that's not necessarily the case. What would have happened is we would have had a better idea to put in a larger footing if necessary what that cost was. Now we're kind of coming around the backside and trying to come back to be able to do that. So change order number 1 is to excavate a maximum of 24 inches underneath of the reactor structure. Right now, we started today, and it looks like we're only going to have to go a foot. But again, we're in a very small area, and we've got a long ways to go through this entire structure. So as we move across through the structure, we're going to keep a close eye on where we're at. We've got staff that's on site making site visits. We've got Mr. Whiteman that's out there. We've got soil scientists that have been out there. The contractors out there, and we're keeping a close eye on things. Anytime soil work's being done such as that, we will have the geotech on site monitoring everything that's happening so that we make sure that the building is suitable for this structure. The biggest concern that the geotechs have is this facility is located in a 100-year floodplain. Not that it's going to impact the building, but it impacts the ground that this building sets on. And as that soil becomes wet in a flood, and this structure being so heavy, there is a concern that if we did not go under and bridge everything underneath of there, that we could have an issue in the future. And we definitely don't want to have that.
Okay.
With that, I'll be willing to answer any questions.
Quick question. How much, we've done soil studies before. How much do they typically cost?
Typically, you can get them between $30,000 and $50,000, depending on how many soil borings you do.
So since the contractor has offered to pay for half of this, we basically are going to be charged a little bit more than what the soil study would have cost us anyhow.
At this point, yes, sir. Yeah, right now, the maximum out of pocket is just over $70,000.
Right. 7622 is what we have in front of us.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, there's no such thing as free money, but there's no additional money required from the county because we're going to use funds from the Caroline Wastewater Treatment or the Caroline Pines project.
That's correct. We're not asking the board to go out and finance more money. When we borrowed money, this project, we did not include a contingency at all. Typically, we will include between 5 and 10% on a project.
Yeah.
Being a PPE
PPA,
project,
you don't.
well, the county bears so much less of a risk that you normally would, and no money was put in there. We do have $3 million that was borrowed for Caroline Pines, and we're looking to spend $2.3 million of that, which leaves us a residual that we can use. Talking with Ms. Hatcher and Mr. Rogers, the funds that are available there cannot be spent anywhere else until Caroline Pines project is done and the wastewater treatment plant, because they were borrowed as a package unit together. So we can't do anything with that money until the plant is completely done. So if there was an issue, we do have the funds available there to be able to back that up.
Okay. And I think the board has discussed the policy before of when we put out a bid for $3 million, if the project comes back at 2.5 or whatever, that we would try to immediately send that additional money back to cover debt service or pay it back as soon as possible. So I understand this is a case where they were done together. They're similar kind of projects. They're both utility things. So I guess in that case we'll work through it. But the bottom line is, if we just spent $50,000 or $60,000 for a soil study, we would have realized that we had this extra cost to incur, and then we would have had to pay for the soil study and the extra cost.
That's correct. And actually, the contractor's taken on quite a bit of a burden now. He actually has a contingency line item within his budget that he can work with. So he's got certain things as escalation. So that's why he's able to eat some of this on his end in his $16.4 million.
Oh, don't think he didn't have a contingency to start with. So.
Right.
Okay. Any questions on that besides what we basically it's a wash. Mr. Steele, you got a question?
Yeah, so are we into the first footings for the first building? Are we done with the first building? Where are we in the project?
We're about 6 months into the project. In a PPEA, when they presented that to us, we were at 30% design. The first 6 months basically have been doing just about everything as far as design. We've gone in, we've cleared and grubbed, we have stripped topsoil, and now we're down to the elevation to start digging footings, and that's where we're at now. So we've gotten the first structure down where we're ready to start digging and pouring footings.
So, I guess my question is, so how many footings have we poured so far?
We have not poured any concrete at all. We got down to this within 2 foot of the soil where we needed to be able to start putting footings in. We dug 3 test pits last Monday to figure out where we're at, and that's when we figured out that the soil conditions were not conducive to be able to do that, which really spurred the change order at this point for the contractor, because we knew at that point, according to the geotech and what we actually found, that we were going to have to undercut and fill that area.
So we haven't poured any concrete, and we've got our first change order.
That's correct.
And we got 3 other things to build.
We've got 4. We've got 3 other that are in the same unsuitable material.
Are we concerned about any of the other facilities?
We are concerned that we are likely to have a change order. The contractor has said that more than likely he wouldn't charge us that as long as it's the same kind of issue that they've got here, because we're only looking at about a 1,400 square foot area compared to 38,000 square foot area for the big reactor. So in comparison, it's a very small percentage compared to this, but at the same time, that's the one that we definitely run a risk on of having some issues. We do have a slight risk on the clarifier, so I definitely don't want the board to think that this is it and we're done and over. We will know within the next 3 months where we are as far as soil conditions on this project, and we hope to have those footings poured and out of the way before we get into really bad weather.
But these are the only issues we actually foresee.
That's correct.
After this, we should be able to say, that's it, project move forward, we know exactly what it's going to cost from there.
The soil is really our big risk. I mean, that's the risk that we take as being the owner of the project. And typically, you take that risk on whether it's a PPA or whether it was a design bid build.
Right.
So it's a risk that we've taken on and you take on. Unfortunately, you build wastewater treatment plants in low-lying areas so you can get gravity to those areas. Where we have to build this is definitely not in the best soil conditions, especially after the geotech report and looking at where we're at. We're on the edge of the RPA. We're in a 100-year floodplain. So, there's issues with the property. However, for this to be able to be easily expanded from 1.5 to 3 million gallons a day, it is where it has to be. So it's not as simple as moving the facility or structure to another location.
So we didn't have a geotech report from the last design that we had done, because when I came, we'd spent $3.3 million on a design that we didn't use.
Right, we were able to use all the architectural and all the other things that were done.
But they didn't do any geotech to figure out what the building was going to look like?
There was not a geotech report that we could find or had been billed for.
I don't think they did.
I'm just, do you have a guess at how much more this will cost between now and getting the footings done?
If you look in comparison, we're probably in a $20,000 range to if we had to do the same type of thing underneath of the sand filters. If we get down there and the soil is worse than where we are now, and we have to drill piers, that could get pretty expensive pretty quick. If we get into the clarifier areas, as we're in this one big area now, the footers are almost 200 by 200 from outside edge to outside edge. So we're talking about a large area. So the soils can actually change in the dimension of this one project now that this one building we're working on now.
How big is the building? Because I didn't think we were building anything that big.
It's the 1.5 MGD reactor units are basically it's 166 by 165 is the outside of the building. We're going 10 foot beyond that with footings 5 foot beyond that to bridge everything under. So it's almost 200 by 200 is the area where we're going to be digging down and excavating.
So how long do you think it'll be before we know what have they done geotech and everything else now?
That geotech has been done. The footers have been designed to meet the soil conditions. The report said that we need to be digging down 12 to 24 inches and putting this geogrid underneath of there, filling it back up with stone, and then pouring the concrete on top of that.
But we're still not sure where we are cost-wise with the rest of I'm just looking for where you think we are. How many more change orders? 20,000?
And again, I don't want to get stuck on that number because we don't know till we get there. If it is the same kind of soil condition that we are in right now, that is the ballpark of where we're going to be. But if the soil condition is any worse at all, and right now we're not, it's very light chance for the clarifiers. But we don't know till we get there. Even with the geotech report, the only way to tell what you have is to actually excavate down there and see what that soil condition is. There's no way, even doing these. There was 18 bores that were done throughout the area. But unless you go every 10 feet, because that soil condition can change in a 10-foot area fairly easily.
Okay. I'm just making sure it's not another $1 million.
No, but we're still.
That's why I was looking for a ballpark.
Look at where we were 5-6 years ago when we first started this process, and we were at $40 million. That's what we got. We did a lot of design work, and it cost us $3 million and change. We're still $15 million to the good on this project. Not that we get to put that in our pocket or anything, but we've saved $15 million by waiting and doing it now. 100,000, another, it's 70 and 20, maybe it's another 100,000. I think that's a pretty good risk we got away with. All right, so we want to. I'm sorry. Anybody else have anything to say? Were you guys good?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think that covers it. When you get into this type of work, you're gonna run into these problems, so it's not unexpected.
All righty. So I guess you probably want us to approve this change order, don't you?
Yes, sir. If we can, it's critical path right now. They're right in that location. So,
motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right. Motion to approve the change order number 1 for wastewater treatment plant expansion project. In the amount of our final amount was
$70,622.
Thank you. I was looking at $76.22 even. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Parton, you have the county administrator's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. To mention a few upcoming events, the county will be participating in the Day of Caring with the Rappahannock United Way coming up on Thursday, October 13th. The event matches volunteers with nonprofit organizations and Department of Social Services and schools, and they go out and complete some projects in the county for the community. It's a very nice event. Mr. Seeley is having community meetings this week on Thursday night at Salem Baptist and Friday night at Bowling Green Volunteer Fire, both at 6 o'clock, correct? Yes. The 22nd Annual Harvest Festival is this Saturday, October 15th, from 9 to 4 in downtown Bowling Green, and the county will be providing some logistical support to that, as we always do. The annual Rappahannock Area Community Services Board legislative reception is October the 25th. I believe it's at 6 o'clock, 6:30, I'm sorry, at the Community Services Building across from the high school. Mr. Collins, who represents one of the county's 3 representatives on the board, was in the office today asking for a head count of board members, and Mr. Seeley, I know, has already indicated that he will be attending, but I would like to get a head count on others that...
That's the next 2 weeks from today.
25th, right. Correct. Mm-hmm. Okay. Frog Level Festival is Saturday, October the 29th. Did want to remind the board and the public that our next meeting will be November 1st. We changed the schedule on that. November we'll meet on the 1st and the 22nd. This week is Fire Prevention Week. Mr. Garnett has placed some information on the county website with tips on preventing fires and a schedule of some of the events that are starting tomorrow in the schools. So that information is available on our website. Wanted to mention that Mr. Wilson has been working with McKesson to publicize their hiring process. They're now hiring for several positions at the new facility in Carmel Church, and we have information on how to apply for those jobs on the county website as well. And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Questions? No questions. Those are jobs you think they're pretty much, computer operations? HR, clerk, facility assistant. Okay, and Mr. Wilson's taking care of that on the county website. Okay, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Parton, I don't know if you have it, maybe Mrs. Hatcher, do you know how much the county contributed to the Harvest Festival? I was just trying to go through my budget real quick, and I don't know where to look. State fair utilities. Oh, you got your budget? Where would it be? Cultural. Proper phone. Oh, everybody. Okay, do you know?
I think it's like 4,000.
That's all. 3,000? And since you're on that same page, we give money to the Frog Level Festival too, in the amount of 3,000. So it's probably 3,000 for the Harvest Festival, Frog Level, and probably Ladies in the Day too. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That was my closing board comment. It was really a question. Mr. Underwood, closing board comments.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we spent quite a bit of time talking about water service in the county, and Mr. Shebel and I were talking last week, and we know it costs quite a bit of money to bring water to the county, but when we look at the revenue that's being generated at Carmel Church, for example, from the McKesson and from the truck stops and from the businesses, so I think you have to look at when you were spending money. Certainly we're spending it, but we're spending to better the county and hopefully to attract businesses so that in the long haul our tax base will increase and lessen the burden on the average resident of the county. So I think while we incur some debt to improve the county, I think it's money well spent.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Popowitz?
Originally, I wasn't going to say anything, but seeing how Mr. Underwood's comments kind of prompted me to just say a few words. Mr. Sheba will be attending the Monday meeting of the George Washington Regional Commission, talking about water and regionalism and that kind of thing, as my guest for that. So just want to let the board make the board aware of that. Note, I certainly support what Mr. Underwood has said, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
You want to mention your comments with the governor?
Yes. Not this past Friday, but the Friday before last, I had the opportunity to go to a political event. The governor was actually there and was speaking. Had an opportunity to talk to him quite a bit, and one of the things that I did was thank him for his comments on the technology zone, and he responded with that he was glad to see that we had done that, and that he felt like we were moving forward, and he has been paying attention to Caroline County. So I thought that was a great comment to hear from the governor. So,
great. Thank you, Mr. Seeley.
I'd just like to pass on the thanks from the Sparta Fire Station for the appropriation to get the fire station back in shape, and I know all the residents down there are very appreciative.
All right, I think that's great. Still willing to go to the Army to try to get us a bridge, but if VDOT says they're going to do it, that's fine. I appreciate that. And thanks to the board. Mrs. Carter and her staff left, but thanks to the board for raising the B-poll tax. You know, I think we did a good thing. It may not seem like it's significant, but it's a step in the right direction. And one day we can eventually get rid of it, and a lot of people have said they would come to the county if we didn't have a B-poll tax. So I think that's a good thing. It's a good start. And I guess we're done. There is no closed meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
We did closing comments. I just can't leave before 9 o'clock. I mean, come
It's,
on.
it's 3 after.
I'll second
Is
that.
there anything else we can discuss?
No, second.
Let's talk about, can we go over, Mike, you want to go over something else we didn't do before? Or we did all your stuff? You want to talk about the festival again? All right. I almost got a buzzer. Okay, motion to adjourn made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Popowitz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.